Zeno Clash is a 2009 game developed by the Chilean studio Ace Team. Zeno Clash is a first-person fighting game with shooter elements, not exactly mind-blowing in terms of gameplay, but what sets Zeno Clash apart is its strange, surreal world. The places, creatures, and people, at least I think they're people, of all sorts and kinds will await you, so let's begin. The story follows Gat. Gat is in trouble after killing Father-Mother, this strange bird-human hybrid creature that was Gat's father-mother. Why Gat has done this is unknown, but we'll be explaining that later as the story progresses. But before the story can progress, we're met with the ghostly figure of Metamok.
Hello, Gat.
Who this is we don't know, but they seem to know Gat. This section acts as a tutorial, teaching you the basics of melee and ranged combat, though you'll be getting tips and reminders throughout the game. As we're at the tutorial, let's talk about the core of Zeno Clash, melee combat. You'll be punching, kicking, and smacking your way across this strange world, with a variety of moves depending on different factors. If the enemy is stunned, the direction you're looking, whether you're carrying a weapon, all the way to pulling off a sweet slow-mo attack that knocks your opponents off their feet when you complete a perfect counter. Your attacks don't cost stamina, but you do lose stamina if you hit someone who's blocking or you absorb attack while you're blocking, so wailing on the enemy and continually blocking isn't going to be your best options. Because when you run out of stamina, you'll be vulnerable for a short while, unable to attack and moving slowly. The first-person fighting isn't as bad as it could be. In these situations, it's easy to get overwhelmed, but the game takes steps to make sure this doesn't happen. First is the dedicated lock-on feature, which can be used to lock on to specific enemies or switch between them. The lock-on also has an automatic feature. When you smack someone, it will turn on, but when you back off a certain distance, it will turn off, allowing you to weave in and out of combat naturally. The game also limits how large fights get. Generally, you'll be only fighting a handful of enemies at one time, so you can keep count of how many people are in the fight. Gat then returns to the real world, and his situation isn't good. After the murder of Father-Mother, Gat is on the run, with his brothers and sisters after him.
You're no brother of mine, Gat! You killed Father-Mother, you worthless cack!
Gonna bring you!
To get away, he'll have to get out of Hailstrom, a strange city that we'll be talking about more later. But thankfully he has help getting out of the city, thanks to Daedra. Daedra acts as a sort of companion to Gat, and thankfully Daedra is in an escort mission. She has infinite health, but can get knocked down if she gets overwhelmed. After a short rest, she'll be back on her feet. While this sounds good, you should still be prepared to do most of the heavy lifting, as Daedra is only equipped with a ranged weapon, which he'll be using throughout the whole game. So Daedra raises the gate, allowing her and Gat to escape into the woods. This is where we're introduced to the native wildlife of the land, the gentle giant chicken raptors and the annoying boatflies. This section acts as a better introduction to ranged combat. It was available in the last section, but given all the chaos it's possible you might have missed it. Ranged weapons come with their own set of advantages and disadvantages. The first advantage being the most obvious: range. In a game that focuses on melee combat, having the ability to reach out and touch something is rather helpful. What's also helpful is the fact you have infinite ammo, meaning you can pluck away to your heart's content. When you hit an enemy enough times with a ranged weapon, they'll get knocked down. But while they're knocked down, they're actually invulnerable to range damage, meaning you have to wait for them to get up, switch targets, or just kick them while they're down. But this ability to reach out and touch someone comes with a price, especially when someone wishes to express their displeasure with your choices. But that ability to reach out and touch someone means you're quite vulnerable when someone wants to express their displeasure with your actions. When you have a ranged weapon equipped, your melee attacks are limited to a shove and a kick, meaning if you want to throw hands, you're going to have to drop your weapon, or throw it at them. You can also lose your weapon if you get blindsided during a fight, and once it's out of your hands, by your choice or someone else's, it's free game, and your enemies will be more than happy to pick it up. But once they have it, the same advantages and disadvantages apply to them. They also get the disadvantage of an AI that's not as trigger happy as you are. Their intentions are telegraphed, and they'll say when they're planning on firing, so you have time to find cover or show them the error of their ways. There are only 4 ranged weapons in Zeno Clash, technically 5 if you count the skull bomb. The first is dual pistols with low damage and a high capacity. The next is the crossbow. It has 2 shots and fires in a slight arc, but deals damage in a small area. Next you have this rifle thing. It has a flat trajectory and does a good amount of damage. The last is the grenade launcher, which, as the name implies, does a large amount of damage, but it has only 1 shot. The 5th ranged weapon is the skull bomb, which I consider a ranged weapon because you throw it at people. The skull bomb is just a grenade, but it suffers from 2 issues, the first being a small blast area and the second being a long fuse time, giving your enemies enough time to run away. but you also know who's running away thanks to a little exclamation point above the enemy's head. So I found them better to be used as crowd control weapons, making people run away from an area. Once Gat and Daedra are through the wildlife, we're introduced to the core woods of the Free. It's hard to describe what the core woods are in a brief summary, so I'm just gonna let Gat do it.
Corwoods are not slaves of their needs, of eating or sleeping. The Corwoods are not slaves to morality or common sense.
The core woods are a strange bunch, and their outfits show it. They're more tribal compared to those we saw back in Hailstrom. By now, you've probably noticed the art style of Zeno Clash. A short way of describing it is punk fantasy, which is something that I haven't seen all that much of. But while playing it, some part of it kept tickling the back of my skull. At first I thought it was Pathologic, which did release a few years before Zeno Clash. But while doing research, I found an interview in which they cited Hieronymus Bosch's paintings and the artist John Blanche as visual inspiration. Now, I'd heard of Hieronymus Bosch before and knew some of his work, but never John Blanche. Well, it turns out I've actually seen a lot of his work, and you have too if you're a Warhammer fan. Back to Zeno Clash, the characters each have unique designs, but there aren't that many, and you'll be seeing the same people over and over. Normally that wouldn't be anything to talk about, but the people you fight each have names, and the fact you keep running into them makes me wonder if you're not actually killing them, but rather just knocking them out. After our introduction to the core woods, we learned that Gat had spent some time with them in the month before his final encounter with Father Mother. How Gat ended up with the core woods is never explained, but given his situation, I can assume that he was just captured. After winning the cage match, we're introduced to heavyweights, a type of enemy that can only be defeated by bashing weapons. These are slow weapons that deal a lot of damage but can be knocked out of your hands like ranged weapons, which is a problem, as most often heavyweights are accompanied by normal enemies, so you'll need to prioritize. After defeating the heavyweights and making your way through the more core woods and wildlife, we're introduced to Metamog.
Metamog wanted to teach me everything he knew, and he was also trying to hurt me. I don't know the reason. Maybe he didn't need a reason.
The ghostly apparition that was our tutorial. After teaching Gat a few more fighting moves, Metamog engages in a final battle to test Gat's skill. Showing his skill, Gat is able to defeat Metamog one last time, but instead of Gat and Metamog parting ways, Metamog tells that he has now reached perfection, and if he's reached perfection, there's only one thing left to do. Returning to the present day, Gat and Daedra make their way to the desert, with the plan of crossing it to escape the wrath of Gat's brothers and sisters. But no one knows what lays beyond the desert, as no one has ever come back. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Tired from their journey, Daedra rests as Gat goes out to collect food. This is the first real time the player has to explore an area without any immediate threat, and even in the desert, this world's strangeness still remains. These giraffe elements are just wandering about. Giant stone blocks are scattered around the sand, and there's even evidence of a previous traveler, but given the state of decay, it's hard to tell how old this kill is. After collecting 3 rabbits, Gat returns to Daedra and encounters the hunter.
I may be blind, but I know I'm aiming at her brain.
A blind assassin who's been contracted by Gat's brothers and sisters to kill him and Daedra. However, the hunter agrees to leave Daedra alone if Gat fights him one-on-one. A strange sense of honor, or more likely, the hunter is just after a bit of sport. In this boss fight, you're supposed to be juggling tasks, keeping away the squirrels, as the hunter calls them, with explosives strapped to them while also whittling away the hunter's health. But I found it easier just to run away from the squirrels and keep shooting the hunter until he's finally defeated and thrown into a nearby oasis. After this, we get another flashback to a few days before Gat's fight with Father Mother. Gat has just returned to Hailstrom after learning from Metamog. Gat is looking into Father Mother's dealings with the Northern Gate Gang, but it's not as simple as that because the door isn't letting Gat in, as he doesn't know what the password is.
Because I am just a door and cannot learn about such things on my own.
I'm not actually sure if this door is a machine or someone is behind it. Just another strange element in a strange world. Thankfully, a lady and her pet dog is willing to give Gat the password in exchange for helping with a small problem. A few members of the Northern Gate Gang have decided to leave the gang and take something with them. We bring back the leader, and she'll tell us the password. This is our only real chance to explore Hailstrom without getting into a fight, and it's a strange place with strange people. The architecture is slightly melted. Straight lines are rare, buildings are made out of wood or seemingly carved out of stone, and random bits of machinery occasionally jut out of walls, and it seems the most common wall ornaments are faces and skulls. And the residents of Helstrom are just as odd. From the frog barrel knight sitting across from sickly people dressed in Victorian ruffles, to the woman with only eyes. Continuing on, Gat finds the thief, and after a short scuffle with him and his friends, Gat is able to bring him to the lady. After getting the password, we're led into the bar and get to see more of the local residents. But out of the bartender, the pigman, and the skaven, the kettle BDSM man over here is somehow the strangest. It's as if he's wanting you to take the chain. We also get one of the few bits of information about the wider world here too.
Are you some sort of hermit? Everybody in Zenzoic knows Halstorm is a mess.
And it makes me wonder what exactly about Hailstorm is that makes it a mess. The people or the people? Looking around, Gat finally finds someone who will take him to see Father Mother. After making a deal, they're off. And we're there. But the meeting doesn't go as planned.
God, why did you bring him here? It's my baby. Don't let him get near my babies.
With Father Mother immediately taking shelter, leaving Gat to fight his way through the Northern Gate gang just to get a word in. Which also doesn't go well, with Father Mother telling everyone that Gat is now a Corwood, essentially exiling him.
Why did you think I'd want to hurt you? Why couldn't I come here?
Go away with your new family, the Corwitts. You cannot stay with us anymore.
Though why Father Mother would take such a drastic step is unknown. Unknown because Gat is unwilling to tell.
Why did Father Mother get so upset?
I figured it out later, but I can't tell you why.
But that's the whole point of telling me the story.
I just won't tell you.
Okay.
Jumping back to the present, things haven't exactly gotten better for Gat and Daedra during their desert journey, as they have run out of desert and are now in whatever this place is. The first thing they come across are these strange statues holding a scepter. Taking the scepter, the statues come alive, and though they're in the shape of humans, they don't sound like them.
Go away!
Adding to the mystery, when these statue people, as the game calls them, are hit, their whole body contracts, and once they're defeated, they don't ragdoll away, but fade into nothing. I'm not sure if everything going on here is technology, magic, a bit of both, or something altogether different. I also have to wonder if these things are the reason people have never come back from the desert.
I hope the reason nobody ever comes back from the desert is because they find something better at the other end.
This level is actually called the End of the World, and I think it's a fitting name given what we're up against and the state of the land and sky. Making their way through the outer area, Gat and Daedra come upon a larger structure. A path rises from the ground, each step covered in strange runes. Reaching the other side, they come upon a large door, also covered in strange runes. But what I'm more curious about are the large poles sticking out of the ground. These could be some kind of power poles, but not all of them. From the way they're placed, I wonder if some kind of battle happened here. Once inside the structure, Gat and Daedra are cut off from one another, leaving Gat to solve the problem by himself. The problem being lighting all these torches, while keeping all the statue people at bay. But once that's done, we can solve the mystery of this Rubik's Cube. And the strange guy as well. Lighting all the torches awakens the stranger, who introduces himself as Gollum.
You may call me Gollum.
Deepening the mystery of Gollum and his Rubik's Cube, he also seems to know a lot about Gat and Daedra.
Oh God, there isn't anything left there. Surprised I know your name. I know everything about you. Daedra, every step you take away from Halston is to find something better.
Gollum is able to convince the two that going on is pointless as there's nothing there for them, and given the scenery, I think that's more of a literal risk. As they're not going forward, the only option is to go back, to Hailstrom. Gat is against it, but with Gollum's help they might be able to take on Gat's brothers and sisters. We then come to the strangest and weakest level. As you're stuck on a boat, all you have to do is shoot the enemies, these guys in ghillie suits, while listening to everyone talk. The map though is unlike any we've seen, with the banks of the river curling up like waves, as we paddle by giraffe elephants in a barren world, all while under an aurora borealis, but that doesn't feel completely right. An odd moment is that Gollum calls this place forgotten by all creatures of reason, which makes me wonder what's the deal with these ghillie suit guys. Now on to the talky bits. To summarize, Gollum is pretty old, and the last of his kind, but whoever they were seemed to know that something was coming, as Gollum was placed in that building as he would be needed for the future. So he remained there out of a sense of duty. Given what Gollum says about the world, I wonder if some sort of cataclysm happened and set everything back. It would explain all the strangeness of this world and its people. After their river adventure, the gang returns to the woods, and with it the Corwoods, who Gollum doesn't quite like.
Miserable creatures I anywhere beheld.
We also get my favorite line in the game.
If you won't try to find coherence in the world, have the courtesy of becoming apathetic instead of affecting others with your pointless actions.
But this time the gang's walk in the woods is interrupted by Chinero, a Corwood whose music keeps the Corwoods from going down. So he'll have to be taken down first before you deal with all the others. Thankfully, Gat has the help of Daedra and How's that Rubik's Cube coming, buddy? With old friends met and pounded into the ground, the gang settles down for some rest. Daedra runs off for some firewood, while Gat sets off to hunt. But after the hunt, Gollum starts to suspect that danger might be near. This starts the largest fight in terms of numbers in the game. A three-way fight between Gat, his brothers and sisters, and the Corwoods. A fight that would have been more chaotic if all these bristles hadn't been cutting up the area. After the fight, Gat wants to know more about Gollum's plan, but he remains a bit cagey. With them getting close to Hailstrom, Daedra finally demands that Gat tell her what happened between him and Father-Mother. Jumping back in time, Gat still needs an explanation from Father-Mother after being exiled. But a frontal assault is impossible as Father-Mother is being guarded by Gat's brothers and sisters, along with the Northern Gate gang. Slinking his way through the sewers, Gat is able to sneak up on Father-Mother in the middle of breastfeeding. But before he can learn more, Gat is spotted.
You're not allowed here! Look here! Gat, get here!
Taking out the guards, Gat makes his way inside, but Father-Mother is gone and left an ambush in her place. Beating his way through that, Gat is finally able to corner Father-Mother. But Gat's brothers and sisters are still unwilling to let him reach Father-Mother and set up a desperate but fruitless defense. Finally, Gat is able to speak to Father-Mother.
You feel what I've done is unfair, God, but I let you go away. Why did you have to come back?
Showing her maternal instinct, Father-Mother's first instinct is to protect her children before facing Gat. Even during the fight, Father-Mother still talks about family. The boss fight with Father-Mother is rather simple. To demobilize her, you shoot her in the legs, and then when she's down, you shoot her some more. You then rinse and repeat the program as needed. But Father-Mother is able to grapple Gat to the ground. About to be crushed, Gat remembers Metamog and pulls out a grenade, killing Father-Mother and not himself, though he does hurt his hand. Jumping back to the present, Daedra is still upset that Gat won't tell Father-Mother's secret. Brushing past this point, with Gat's brothers and sisters searching the main road, the gang is forced to take a side road to minimize their chance of discovery. Along the way, they come across a mother and her child.
It's not a pig. Or at least not just a pig. This is my son, Gosney.
I'm not one to judge, but Gollum seems to think it's important.
I want you to remember this woman when we're in Halston.
Before anyone can press Gollum, he commands Gat and Daedra head down to the coast while he stays behind, to work on important things. Heading down to the coast, Gat is greeted by the echo of waves, crabs that spit at him, a washed-up whale, and an old friend.
You think this place will confuse me? I can always hit the squirrels.
The hunter is back, but this time he's at a disadvantage. Forced to rely on his hearing, the echoes of the coast throw off his senses, making him rely on his squirrel friends. Remembering our encounter with him last time, we focus our attention on the hunter, only taking time to kill off the crabs. With the hunter again defeated, Gat returns to the side road, but the hunter isn't done yet.
Thought I was gone already? You're a good shooter, but how well can you fight?
Unlike before, this will be solved up close and personal. The hunter's arrogance or sense of sport compels him to fight with one hand behind his back. But once his health bar is at half, the hunter decides to take Gat seriously. And with two hands, the situation looks grim for Gat. But before the hunter can get in his final blow, Gollum arrives. Not happy about this interruption, the hunter expresses his frustration. Gollum expresses his displeasure at being cut by absolutely destroying the hunter.
Who are you? There is no one I can...
From the sounds, killing the hunter once and for all. But before anyone can ask any questions, Gollum is already making his way to Hailstrom. Our only takeaways from this scene are that Gat, Daedra, and the Golem are connected in more than a metaphorical way, making one wonder if it's somehow related to how Gollum knows so much about Gat and Daedra. Also, it shows that Gollum is able to back up his words with actions. At long last, the gang arrives at where it all started, the gates of Hailstrom. But first they'll have to get past the gate, which Gollum does by raising it with his bare hands. While Gat and Daedra keep the guards off him. Once through the gate, Gat is again cut off in ambush, but this time by two heavyweights. Thankfully, they brought a bashing weapon with them, so Gat is able to take care of him. This then leads to a twist.
Enough!
Where Father and Mother is still alive, injured, and sporting a new eye patch. Tired of the constant fighting, Father and Mother challenges Gat to a final showdown, not interested in Gollum's words or flickering model. This second fight with Father and Mother is a bit disappointing, as it's exactly the same as the first. Shoot Father and Mother in the legs to cripple her, then shoot her while she's down. It even takes place in the same arena. The only change is that a random enemy joins in. Thinking that he's won, Gat turns his back on Father and Mother, only to be blindsided with a hammer. But before Father and Mother can get the final blow in, Gollum once again saves Gat.
No!
Allowing Gat to turn the hammer on Father and Mother. With the battle over, Gat chooses not to reveal Father and Mother's secret or kill her, but Gollum tells the truth.
Father and Mother is neither your father nor your mother.
The family Gat knew isn't his real one. Father and Mother has been kidnapping children, and isn't even a woman. That was the secret Gat learned when he spied on Father and Mother, and why Gollum wanted us to remember that woman by the coast. But Gollum isn't done yet. For a while now, he's been talking about bringing peace to Hailstrom, and it is time to enact his plan. With a twist of his Rubik's Cube, the game cuts to a statue man, and the credits roll. Who this Shadow Man is, what's the deal with the Rubik's Cube, what Gollum meant when he said everyone was linked is never explained. And I'm okay with that. Zeno Clash is a simple game in a strange world, one I actually feel deserving of the title Alien. A world whose familiar elements are in the minority. The game is short. I played on normal, or hard as the game would say, and I beat it in only 4 hours and died only a few times. While not exactly deep in terms of gameplay, it was functional and enough to carry a short game. The world of Zeno Clash is definitely the star of the show, from the strange creatures to the even stranger landscapes. If you're interested in the game, then I'll have links to where you can buy it below. And if you're watching this out of some foggy memory of the game, then you might be interested in knowing the game has a sequel, and as of recording, a third game on its way soon. Until next time, thanks for your time, and I hope you have a good day.